Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee. I'm really glad to be here today. Welcome. Happy New Year for 2025. And I am going to be talking about some of my favorite things, and especially when around technology and productivity. I've just been collecting these things along, and I realized over the holidays as I was sharing a lot of these tips and tricks with people. So I figured I'd share them with you. So I do have quite a few slides today. And also, before I get started, I would love for you to share if you're coming from someplace that's to say hello. I'd love to say hello back. And then also, please share some of your favorite tech hacks. Like, what are the things that you are really proud of yourself that these are the things that you do that are pretty cool and neat? Because I sure would like to know about them and share them with the other people here who are on the live stream too as well. So let's get started. I have definitely some slides. You can get them at this address. I'll try to put them into the comments too as well. I can't post into LinkedIn for some reason, and my friend Jay is not here today. So if somebody could take us and throw it into LinkedIn so it's easy for people to see it too as well, I would really appreciate it. Same thing with Facebook. It looks like it's not working there too as well. Gotta love technology. All right. So again, share some of your favorite hacks and let's get into it. All right. So here are my slides. Here we go. So here are a few of my favorite things. I have, I think, 8 things to share. I just threw one in at the very last minute. All right. So the very first thing I want to talk about is just lighting. So I travel a lot. And one of the things that I find is the lighting is not nearly as good as what I have in my home office here. I've got 2 really big lights here to just give me as good lighting. I've got lighting in my background. So perfectly set up. Not the case when I'm in a hotel room or worse comes to worse in a coffee shop. So I use these little lights. I sometimes travel with just like a little light like this and it lights up. It gives you lots of good light. So that helps if I'm traveling super light, like I'm just going off on the road someplace for the day. But I also have this really kind of big contraption and it looks kind of like alien in some ways. It has 2 small lights, but they're very bright and they can go into different colors. And one of the things that I like about it is that I use it. I used to have just one, but now I use 2, so they can get rid of the shadows on either side of my face. And on the right side, you can see how I actually jerry rigged it to be in a hotel room because I couldn't move the desk. It was this heavy thing. There was no way for me to clip the thing. So I clipped it to an ice bucket, which is pretty stable, stuck it behind my laptop, and I was off to the races. In fact, I put it over there someplace, but it's pretty big, but it's folds pretty flat, so it easily goes into my suitcase, and I have my little portable studio. Now, it's one thing to have good lighting, but it's even more important that people be able to hear you. So I just realized I hadn't queued this up, but hopefully I can find it. Um, let's see, let me just find it. So I use something called a Crisp. And what it does, it's a virtual AI powered noise canceling microphone. And so what it does, and here's an example what it does, it cancels out all the background noise so that it sounds almost like quality studio sound. I did experiment with this yesterday, and Zoom actually has really good noise canceling now. If you go into your audio settings, you'll be able to see that it says automatically on, and it'll get rid of most of the background noise. So people may not realize it, but they're saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, my dog is barking. Can't hear the dog barking," because on Zoom, it's doing that noise canceling. I know that Teams and some other programs have this built in, but the reason why I like using Crisp is that it's always on. I use it literally as my microphone and it's platform agnostic. So I don't have to worry about the settings inside of Zoom, inside of Teams, or if I'm doing a podcast on Riverside, it doesn't matter. It's there. And so I'm going to see if I can get this to work. And so I'm playing a video right now of a dog barking. You probably can't hear it. So I'm going to go into Crisp. Let's see if I can do this. All right, it's Crisp is on right now. I'm going to turn it off and hopefully you can hear it. It's just a dog just barking and going off and on. And I'm going to turn it back on now, the crisp, and you shouldn't be able to hear, but it's still very much barking. And so I have done this with a somebody with a long leaf, a leaf blower outside of my window when I was presenting in a webinar. I have been in a hotel room where there was literally construction on the other side of the wall. I couldn't even hear myself, and nobody could hear anything. I'm in a coffee shop, and it also works really well. So I just love this little widget because it is just so dependable that I know that I'm going to have really good quality sound. And even here in my home office, I have some pretty good sound tiles and things. It's still a little bit echoey. It just makes it that little bit better in terms of audio quality so that people can hear you well. All right. A couple other things I like about Crisp is that it also, because it's recording you, it has can also just automatically get you meeting transcripts and recordings. And what I love about this is that again, you can go and hit the recordings. They have a new version with video. I don't like it that much, but I love being able to do this. And my favorite little feature here is that it also can generate summaries. And unlike other tools, I also use Otter AI and Firefly's AI because they're just really good transcript creators. But I like Chris because it's just always there. It's with my microphone. It's super easy, and I actually like the way it generates the summaries. It doesn't do it in real time. It does it afterwards. It takes a transcript and then summarizes it. So it's a little bit of a nuance, but I really do like that a lot. So I think one of the things that is really powerful about these tools is that when you are thinking about, again, we are constantly living in a video conference world, having great lighting and great audio. It's just a baseline to have no matter where you are. All right, I want to move on to some AI hacks that I have developed. The first one is when you are using AI, have it ask you clarifying questions. So you are putting in a request, you're asking it to do things, and then at the very end of the request, add this text, something like this. Before you start, ask me any clarifying questions you may have. And the reason is no matter how much you try to make your prompt as good as possible, as robust and as full as possible, you're just not going to think of everything that the AI needs to know for it to do a good job. So you ask this question, it's going, oh, I get the request, but I need a bit more information. And what I find so fascinating is the quality of the questions that ask me. And it's as if I was working with a colleague. I would ask the colleague, "Hey, this is the thing I want. Yeah, this is the thing I want you to do." Or again, it's an assistant. And at the very end, I would always ask, "Do you have any questions?" And you're asking the AI to do the same thing. So I think it's a really helpful thing to be able to see and ask it. And the questions that comes back are amazing because, uh, again, it's all the things I hadn't thought about. And I get a much, much better response when I have a conversation with the AI and have it ask me those types of questions. All right. The next hack is because I put in that phrase so often. So I put in this particular phrase before you start asking me the clarifying questions you may have. I don't want to type that every single time. So I use a text snippet, a tool called Blaze today. So and it has a little dashboard and it has these little snippets that I can use. So I created one called Clarify and I activate it by using the forward slash clarify. And every time I tap that into something on my browser, it types in this text. Before you start, please ask me clarifying questions you may have. And so, because I use this so much, it's a quick, short cut that I can use just on my keyboard. And I use this constantly. So, just to give you an idea of other snippets that I use, I'm constantly typing the title of my book that I'm co-authoring with Katja Welsh. So I have slash title, my LinkedIn address I have to use to fill in forms all the time. I oftentimes get requests from people. So I have a request a snippet called full plate. And it says, I love what you're doing, but my plate is very full right now. So I'm going to have to pass. All the best to you. And then I also have a shortcut for links to my calendar. So it just has everything in there. I can just quickly type that in rather than having to do that every time. And it avoids me misspelling the link, which I do constantly. So I love these little hacks. And the again, it's available at blaze.today. I mean, there are many other different types of text snippets that you can use for keyboard shortcuts. I happen to use a email tool called Superhuman. I am an investor in that. But the one thing I love about that is that there are these built-in snippets there that I can use constantly for my email. But again, it's great for if you're using Gmail to have something like TextBlaze because anything in your browser, it will use. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is using multiple LLMs. And this text snippets and copying and things like that are very helpful because I don't know at the very beginning which of the various generative AI tools that I use is going to be the best for the particular issue that I'm trying to address. So I will oftentimes line them up. They look like this in my browser. I have ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Perplexity all lined up in my browser. I'll craft my prompt, including that one thing before you start asking clarifying questions, are crafted in one of the engines, and I copy it into the other three, and all four I have them generated. And I pick which one I want to use based on which is asking me the best questions. Which one actually understands the issues, is asking me and thinking about things so I get a little bit of an idea before I start. Which one is looking at this in the way that I want to? And it just constantly surprises me which one of them works. And as you know, these tools are constantly changing, they're always evolving. So if it's something I want some really good content on, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I will do this exercise when I go through all of them. So this is just one of my favorite hacks because again, I never know which engine is going to be the best. So I may as well try all of them, very quickly copy and paste across all of them. And the way I decide is based on the questions, the quality of the questions it's asking me. So those are a couple things that I do with just some quick things there. I'm going to go a little deeper now. And you talk about custom GPTs. So I did a live stream towards the end of last year about how to set up custom GPTs. I have a lot of information there on my LinkedIn newsletter that you can go and find also as well. But the custom GPTs are a specialized version of a generative AI model. So ChatGPT has one. It's called My GPTs. Claude also has something called projects. I haven't dove into Gemini lately to see if they have this, but I'm pretty sure they do. And what I love about this is that you can customize the GPT with a set of unique instructions and also files and data that you want to create. So you can give it examples of your brand voice for your company or examples of your writing. You can give it company background and strategy and marketing plans. You can give it policies, procedures. You can give it so many things. And what I find this to be helpful is that I find myself asking AI the same types of questions like, okay, you are an editor. Here's something I want to have written and looked at, but I want it looked at in a certain way. I wanted to understand the way that I write, the way I think, and take that into account. So these custom GPTs are incredibly helpful because instead of having to rewrite a prompt, it is, and all the details again, it just has the information already built in. So I want to give you a couple examples of the types of custom GPTs I have currently. So obviously I have my Bookwise editor because Katya and I are writing a book. So I have an editor set up so that it can take a piece of writing and give me feedback on it. I also have uploaded all of my interviews into a custom GPT, and then I can say, hey, I'm looking for a particular example of this. Go find it, find me the example, and also give me the timestamp of where that is. And it does a great job of that instead of me pouring through thousands of pages of transcripts. I am really working on my health. So I have a functional medicine advisor. Again, I'm not relying on this for all of my health, but I take all of my notes from my meetings with my various doctors and specialists. I uploaded all my lab reports, and I can ask her questions. And in particular, I've been working on when exactly should I be taking this supplement versus that one because they have counterindications. And then, of course, I love to travel, and instead of having to type in over and over again, "This is what I like to do when I travel," I have an adventure travel advisor. It understands what I like to do. It has examples of my past itineraries, and it can when I say, "I'm going to so and so place," what can I do there? I have 2 hours to kill between meetings or before I go to the airport. What are some fun, interesting things I can do? So it'll just give me some examples and things without me having to tell it over and over again what it is that I want to do. So those are some of my favorite hacks right there when I use custom GPTs. Now, I'm just watching the time here a little bit. I have just two more things that I want to talk about. The next thing is a really interesting hack where I take transcripts of meetings that I have had, especially with clients. And one of the most tedious and hard things I have to do is write proposals. And I have a certain format where I talk about, this is the problem we're addressing, this is the situation, here's a proposal, and et cetera, and all the boilerplate stuff. And what I do now is I take transcripts of the meetings and I give it to one of my tools that I have, and it has again I can give it different documents, but this is the prompt that I use, and I covered up the client names. And I said, you'll be creating a proposal for client A. They have requested a proposal for a keynote at their upcoming leadership offsite. Attaches a transcript of our call. I've also attached a previous proposal for another client that has a similar format. But then I give it a little more details. I want 2 timeline options I want to put into this. And of course, I ask at the end before you start, please ask me any clarifying questions you might have. And the reason I do this is that if you are finding yourself oftentimes going from a meeting and having to summarize it, create a document, I find that this has been a tremendous productivity tool for me in that I'm not asking it to write original content, but I am asking it to take some very specific content and information and put it into a format that I use on a regular basis to be able to write this proposal. Of course, I'm reading through it, commenting and changing the content, but it is a great and fantastic shortcut to be able to do that. So one of the things that I have found is that I constantly am asking, what are the things that I can get generative AI to do some of this heavy lifting for? And I find that creating proposals, helping me just if I get questions ahead of time, I'll just give it and say, "Hey, answer some of these questions as me." Again, using my existing database, and it just gives me a little bit of a head start before I actually create the content, think about things I want to do. I recently did something that was really fun. I was doing some work around for a technology company, and I got the questions in advance, and I was writing it up, and I realized well, the answer is that it was kind of writing up what didn't sound like me. And I was trying to create a script for a teleprompter. And I said, look, just look at all the videos of me out there speaking and write it in my tone of voice. And it came back sounding very much like me. And you can tell whether it sounds like it is, you can, if you can read it and it feels really natural, then it sounds like you. And I was astounded by how good of a job it did just by going out there and looking at publicly available videos of me. I worry about the IP content aspect of that, but it sure was a fantastic shortcut instead of me trying to write content from scratch in my voice. Again, just super fast and easy and highly relevant to the task I was doing. All right, I've got one more thing here. And this is one thing I just squeezed in at the end because I realized how incredibly valuable it is. I use HubSpot for my CRM. So if I'm emailing you, if I have newsletters and I see information that's going in and out, I use HubSpot as a way to keep track of those conversations and those relationships. And it's where my sales pipeline, everything lives on HubSpot. And one of the most difficult things is I do a lot of communication on LinkedIn. And it is not easily to connect from LinkedIn into HubSpot. You have to use LinkedIn Navigator and all these things. So I found a great little hack called HubLead. And so what Hubly does, it's a little widget that sits inside of your browser. And when I go into a message, and I blanked out this conversation, it was somebody asking me, hey, I really liked your website, and I gave it the information. You can see at the very bottom, the plugin for the Chrome plugin, it inserts into the bottom of the LinkedIn message. Hey, do you want to add this contact to HubSpot? And I go, yes, I do. And then the next thing I see, it says, do you want to sync the messages? I'm like, yes, I do. And therefore, it just automatically creates that contact, and then allows it to, again, sync the messages. You do have to do this manually, but I find it so much easier to capture in conversations that I may be having with somebody on LinkedIn. And then if it transitions to email, it also moves over there too as well. So it captures it all in one place. And I have found this to be supercharging the way that I can understand where relationships and my conversations are going across different platforms. It is one of the most difficult things I find in terms of understanding and leveraging LinkedIn. And ever since I started using this about 6 months ago, it has really made a huge difference in me being able to go and use LinkedIn to its full potential. And again, I would normally just use LinkedIn Navigator, but I don't have that much of a need to use all of the tools inside of there. I just want to be able to sync my contacts and messages when I'm interacting with people. So that's a quick whirlwind view of some of the things that I have found to be extremely helpful over the past couple of years. And everything from making your sound and lighting look better, especially if you're on the road, to how I use some of these tools like generative AI on a daily basis. Now, the thing that I really want to emphasize is that these hacks and tools are so custom to people, and I try to find ones that were more generally relevant and things that I have found that people were resonating with. I'm like, oh, you should try maybe doing this. So I encourage you to experiment, to try and explore with these things, because that's where hacks come from. How do you get things and the technology to work for you and to be able to harness that power? All right. And I just want to say hi to Mohammed. Thanks for joining today. I'm glad you enjoy it. And thank you, Joy, for joining. I'm glad that you're enjoying all of these resources available to you as well. And again, if you have any particular hacks that you are thinking are really cool and interesting, please send them to me, because I love these little productivity hacks and tools and ways of thinking about doing things differently. All right. I am going to be coming back again in 2 weeks, and I will be talking in 2 weeks on January 21st at my regular time at 9 a.m. I'm on the road next week, and I'll be talking about a topic that I'm going to be speaking at CES about on Thursday, which is how belonging drives innovation and growth. It is something I think it's very important to think about. And it's in the context of DEI, and which is in many ways is a tough conversation to have right now in many in companies and given the political environment that we're in. But I think it's still really important to understand what the research shows about belonging and about the importance of this diversity and inclusion in order to drive innovation and growth. It is my passion to think about how do we grow, how do we disrupt and transform. And the fact that we have different teams, diverse teams, they're hard to manage. There's inherent conflict and friction. And yet that is what drives innovation and growth. So we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks. I hope you'll join me for that. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions. I think that's it. All right. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope these hacks give you a head start for the coming new year. And I look forward to seeing you all again in 2 weeks. Take care until then. Goodbye.